Ac- So actually, the monitoring part, when we started working in the community, our focus was on first was on training, forming the vigilance committees around each of the toilets, and then training the people in those vigilance committees, the leaders in those vigilance committees, around what are the things that they need to check, what is the frequency of that checking, and where would they report around if there is anything wrong. And very frequently, almost every 2 weeks, the meetings with BMC, municipal corporation officials, actually all these complaints or whatever findings and observations were there, they were discussed in the group discussions which were conducted with operators and BMC officials and vigilance committee member. There were rounds of training that were done, especially like when we did mapping, how to map these toilets and how to put them on Google and how would we see our own picture. So every aspect of monitoring was actually exercised with people, and FGD's focus group discussions or discussions with officials was the forum for corrective actions to be taken and discuss more deliberation. And then on one side, it was also about the behavioral change with the community. I mean, constantly talking to community about what needs to change in terms of cleanliness habits and etc. Not that they change overnight, we all know, but still talking to people consistently about that. So taking community participation on that, and wherever there are administrative and relevant other things, taking them to appropriate authorities, whosoever that is, whether it is BMC official. So that had formed the, and actually all data was collated. I mean, what were the discussions that happened, what were the points raised by them, what were the corrective actions taken. So all data is collected, and this monitoring was done for 501 toilet blocks in M East Ward, where right from mapping them and putting them on Google Map to doing status. I mean, what is the status? The main observation was around what is the status of the toilet. So which is about the construction, because many of the toilets were obsolete. They had been constructed like 30 years ago, etc. As Vijay was saying, there was no sewerage line in that. The construction was faulty. There was no water. So on all those indicators, primarily cleanliness, electricity, water, access, safety in this, the life of those toilet blocks, and what are the shortcomings in using those toilet blocks. So all those were noted down, collect by people and authorities together, and then the action started actually to mend those things, whatever possible. I mean, it was also a long process, but fortunately, things that could be mended quickly got mended immediately. So probably that was the power of the voice of people, which had direct access to the authorities. Yes. And all that data is also around monitoring is also available, so we can share the data in the form of report. It is available, so we can share the data.
Okay. So if you see this process and the challenges involved, definitely there were like immense challenges, because this is one of the critical ward of Mumbai, known as the resettlement ward, where most of project affected people are moved here, and which has the lowest air quality, groundwater quality, human development index, child mortality rate is high, but still a lot of population has been shifted here, and dealing with such kind of context is very different, as maybe it was very different within Mumbai itself. About 9 lakh of population of this ward, more than 90% people stay in slums or informal settlement, I would call it. So here we started when we started this mapping, it was very extensive. I mean, in the previous initiative or projects, when we did mapping, it was maybe just qualitative and quantitative, and we produced map, we identified the problem. But here the scenario, the situation was very different. And so to respond to it, even the mapping has to be a little different. So we worked on different levels, like for example a macro mapping, where you know how the overall network of sanitation, because sanitation is just not toilets, how the other network, if you say sanitation is like a safe disposal of human excreta and management of the solid and the liquid waste. And generally it is seen in just terms of number, like how many seats per person, or how many person per seat, sorry, and is it been increased, but then here our approach was a little different, to do a social impact assessment of those toilets on the people's life or the community's life, if we are talking about so much of involvement of the community. When we start and very important thing in the beginning, when we started evaluation, I think a lot of people have mentioned here that it was along with the community and with the community, and not it's not that the community was involved at a later stage and they've been proposed with a proposal. So here we had a team like of Coro, and most of them are much aware of that community because they are coming from that community, they are fellows from the community, they are leaders from the community. From our team we had architects, planners, and as a team we went to assess all the situation. And there were a very major thing was we were not outsiders, because these people are facing all this problem, and they had immense experience of using these facilities on a daily basis. So somebody going for 1 or 2 days to assess it versus having the experiences of the users was very different for us. And at the same time we mapped the networks, how the sewerage system is going, which part was completely lacking the sewerage system, like the toilets were there but there was no connections of the sewerage lines. So on like one map, then after that mapping exercise, on one slide we were able to gauge that okay, we require more attention for sewerage network in the lower part, the lower wards. Secondly, we also used a lot of micro mapping tools where you actually assess the urban form of that space around the toilet, the design of the toilet. One of the important I'll not share a lot of numbers here, but one of the important finding was
we have just 15 seconds, Vijayashree.
There is always a stigma with this toilet, and it is there is always a garbage bin with the toilets. Then how along with the community we can change the scenario to change people's perspective towards this toilet was important. At the same time, we did another kind of mapping, was understanding how the toilets are conceived, because in such community, because there are multiple stakeholders like MADA, MCGM, SSP, private NGOs who come and build the toilet, and the process is not unified. And with this mapping we realized that we need to unify the process, and there is a need for a unified sanitation policy for this community. So this also we, okay, I can't share my screen. Anyway, we mapped a few of the processes of MADA, how your basically toilet is conceived, and then the particular stages it was identified that these are the gray areas. Like for example, MADA builds the toilet without electricity and water, and then it's been handed over. Sometimes it's just not handed over. So that part was the gray area. So in the coming up policy, we'll be working on such gray areas which were identified during these mapping process.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So I think In terms of the challenges and the experience which we had over a period of last 2 years, particularly during the community mapping exercise, and one of the mandate which we were looking at was about the operation and maintenance. And it is needless to mention that operation and maintenance comes with the monitoring, and monitoring means you have to work on the data. And when you have to work on the data, then there comes the timeliness of the data and the authenticity and so on. So this is basically I think there are 2-3 challenges in terms of, one is we talk about the quantitative data as well as we will have to talk about the qualitative data. When I say qualitative data, that is basically to look at the process indicators. We were discussing, I think, during the course of our interactions with the BMC officers on is there any kind of a sanitation policy which is available within the BMC. But then, I mean, it was to me it was literally shocking to hear that, I mean, there is no community sanitation policy for a population, for a city which has 50% of its population staying in slums and with its own challenges and with its own opportunities. So, and then second thing which moved during our discussion was about the data. So if suppose like Madam Sangeeta ji was talking about, I think we, as of now, I want to understand which toilet construction is going on, which toilet construction has issues. So there is no real-time monitoring data. And when we talk about the adequacy norms, we are simply clueless. I mean, we do not have that kind of data. So I think the mapping exercise, which actually looked at, when I say operation and maintenance part of that, I think there is a huge scope for the community to come and play its role, and that role is basically not only the responsibility, but it also comes with an accountability of managing those toilets. So that is I think something which needs to be really strengthened through the institutional arrangements. Now, if we look at the current process, I mean, there might have been certain improvements in that, but if I look at that particular process which is followed as of now is basically the BMC constructs a toilet through its own process of tendering and having the contracts in place and all so on and so forth. But then once the community-based organization is supposed to be formed, I mean, there is a catch. I think we need to catch that catch basically. So the contractor is supposed to mobilize the community and form a CBO, community-based organization. I think that is something which we really need to work on. And I think it's going to be a bigger challenge. We need to bring in and we need to sensitize the corporators also, because I think their role is very crucial in this, both politically, administratively, and I think from a social service perspective. That is I think one thing I would use. And second is in terms of now, what is the role of people like us? People like us, definitely, like Sujata was mentioning in the beginning about the facilitation, about the policy. I think policy, it's not only policy shift, it needs a paradigm shift in BMC, I think. And we are actually facing the music in terms of when we see the entire world is talking about community transmission of COVID. And there was only one patient, I remember, a month ago, and now we have got, I don't know, I mean, more than 50,000 alone in Mumbai. So see at the rapid transmission of this thing, and that is probably because the systems are not in place, because probably the community has, or probably we as a society has probably not attended that over a period of time. So that is something I think we need to, but having said that, I think it's not very easy. It is very challenging. It needs a lot of work to do. It needs a lot of stakeholders to come in. It needs to be supported both financially as well as in terms of policy initiatives. So I think because now we are in the COVID times, I would still focus and I would still like to look at that aspect of operation and maintenance from all aspects. And in terms of the institutionalization, like in the project we were talking about the vigilance committees. So those are the things I think probably would be a potential answer to look at that. I mean, there is a one mechanism, but then there has to be a kind of, but at the same time we also need to be really open up our kind of particularly from the corporation perspective, that we need to be open for such kind of mechanisms, that those cannot be a kind of power centers, but those needs to be kind of positive vibes for institutional development, and through that look at the community involvement. So O&M, I think, is the biggest challenge, and all those things which I think we can definitely prune those and find out what are those associated things, particularly the monitoring part of that. I think real-time data monitoring of all the aspects at the BMC level is a key. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, actually, as everybody else has said, there are enormous challenges, especially when you are facilitating a non-hierarchical, process, which participatory process, which is democratic process, because everybody has different voice. It's not top-down kind of thing, and everybody is not on the same page at any given point of time. To bringing everybody on the same page also takes a lot of energy into that. And not that everybody comes on the same page and agrees with each other, but then listening capacity actually in the process gets enhanced. I mean, even if I don't agree with you, I can listen to what you are saying and I see merit in that point. That kind of sense gets developed, I think. And actually, there are only two things that we have been experiencing for the last 30 years is if you are facilitating community-led processes, three words are important: patience, process, and participation. So you have to continuously keep doing this process and trusting people's ability. Actually, as Vijayasree was just saying, actually, how Vijayasree and her team actually spoke to community people about the design of the toilets and how they demystified the toilet design, which to any person from the community might feel very overwhelming, like I'm helpless, I can't understand that. We believe that ignorance is just not knowing something at that point of time. And if people are told about it, they understand it. So trusting that ability, trusting people's analytical ability, trusting people's connection ability. So that I think is very important when you are dealing this community, you are facilitating this community-led processes. One thing I also found that what RTP has also done very miraculously is taken rights across the system, the concept of rights. Because as Sangeeta or even Anand they were saying earlier, like right to pee, what is this right? Where comes the rights here? And generally the system is very aversive to listening to rights-based kind of conversation. But then if you see now in all municipal corporation communication, etc., or conversation, right to pee comes very easily. So that also the right to pee has done that kind of thing, taking rights across to the system in a non-threatening way, where we can sit together, talk about rights, we can think together and take decision. And bringing all these stakeholders together, whether it is BMC officials, whether it is community people, whether it is operator of toilets who have kind of transactional interest in the process, So bringing them also on the table and having conversations like this is, we own it. So how can we actually do it better? Those communication. And we've seen that these vigilance committees that have been formed almost on every toilet, training those vigilance committees for doing monitoring, and which has very specific indicators like cleanliness, safety, light, electricity, water, etc. But the most important thing also is here, understanding the perceptions of community. That is very important, because when somebody goes from outside to monitor, actually that person or that team goes with their own constructs of all concepts. For example, safety. Anybody would say easily, there is no safety, okay, put on a light, and then there is light and it will be a safe place. But actually that doesn't really lead to safety of what women in the community think of safety. Say, for example, access, 250 meters, within 250 meters area, you have to have a toilet block. But that access doesn't make any sense if you can't really physically access that. As we know all, in one of the communities that we are working, the access to toilet blocks is really weird, I would say. There is one very long, dirty access, and another easy access passes through the salon, men's salon. So how would a woman take water bucket and pass to its salon where men are sitting, and where is the question of dignity, where is the question of respect? All these things need to be taken into consideration. So one thing that happens in the community-led interventions and also monitoring, I would say, is basically people's concept, people's perception. They are recognized and respected, and they found the cognizance. And when Sangeeta was telling about how we had that 100-point monitoring indicators, so actually those 100-point indicators reflect community voices, because they have been arrived at after a long process of discussion with community, with operators, with different people, different stakeholders. And we think this is what the community led, where people have voices, people can just a small thing of having a latch in the toilet. So at what height that should be when you are building women's toilet, So all these kind to some they might find it very frivolous, but they're so important when people are actually using and accessing those toilets and those facilities. So primarily we think that when we are talking about community-led interventions or monitoring, so relevance of that intervention is important for the community, but toilet, we all know, is so relevant to this. And the monitoring of the community, the vigilance committee will monitor it only when they feel that they are not helpless, because most often the sense of community is of being helpless. Like, what can we do now? These toilets are there, nobody will listen to us, so how can we do? So that sense prevails, and we have to really demystify that sense. Give information to people, but only information is not enough. Give mechanism to apply those take them to different agencies, and information, being with the team, being with the community, actually empowers that sense of fearlessness, sense of helplessness, or that fear to communicate with anybody, that loses when people are with information and with support. And that's how we facilitated the same. And now what we see is actually Coro is very much invisible in the process. Like, the complaints come to vigilance committees, and vigilance committees directly take it to the officials for negotiation, for solving. So it's there, but Coro is on the back job. And I think that's yeah, Supriya?
What I wanted to say, it is
Yeah,
not
sure.
only NGO. Since last many years, we have been working on all these community toilet all together. Our Mr. Jagtap, an officer, is also there. So he may be having all data with him, how many toilets has been constructed, and then whatever that 100 points, not only that 100 points, but at the time of construction, what things we saw. This is very unfortunate. I heard that there is a way only through that, saloon to go there. Obviously, it will affect the dignity of the woman, and this where it is, you just tell us, then I can just forward it to that officer and ask him to look into. But obviously we saw it is there in that within 250 meters there are toilets are there. The norms have been formed, norms for the male seat, norms for the female seat, for the children, for the transgender, then for the disabled people, like. So all this criteria has been taken care of. Apart from that, whether they are having bulbs or not, if they are not having bulbs, water, and then water tank, NGOs are in place or not, all this record of every toilet is available now with every ward officer as well as in the central department. So monitoring and evaluation is taking place at administrative level also. It is not only NGO level, but I can always say that MEs and ward is adopted by the RI2P people, and they're really doing good job there. And if there is any deficiency, please tell us, then we will try to improve also. And I'm very sure that now scenario is not same what was there back. And secondly, during COVID, the directions are there that we should not take any payment from the people, and we have deployed our NGOs also. If anywhere they are taking the payment and all, that also you please bring to my notice. I'll just inform to the concerned officers. So the evaluation and monitoring is taking place at very well at administrative level also. In phases, we have constructed many toilets. The old toilets have been removed, demolished, and the new toilets have been constructed. So this is now third phase is going on of Lord
Yes.
10 toilet we say. So this third phase we will be, I think, completing our target of having complete our toilet seats are associated with the population. So I think we will be completing our target in this Lot 3 phase. So I think administration is also doing very good job, I feel. And it is in Mumbai, you can see that 1.5 crore population, and with that also with lots of constraint, still we try to give
Yes.
maximum and good.
Absolutely.
And this message also should reach to each and everyone, I don't say ki the administration 100%, but now some people may not, their priorities are different. Okay, it may be it is raining and now it is a rainy season, so our priority is only disaster management, so we don't look after the right to pee activity. But during monsoon only, this toilet facilities, having proper toilet facility, that especially for the woman is very much essential, that we don't forget only totally. Okay, it should be taken as a part of the disaster only during monsoon, that if the toilet is not proper, it is a leaking toilet, it is flooded around, or it is raining very heavily, there is no light and woman cannot reach till the toilet, these are the part of the disaster only. And this is a challenge that every administrator have, how to reach till every toilet and understand what are their issues, however competent or however good administrative skill the person must be having, or having a good team working, but the amount or quantum of work is so much that our administrative people cannot reach to every toilet. So it is a community's responsibility to take responsibility of this toilet, which they are not ready to take. Like whenever we want to develop any community toilet, we generally try to form one NGO who will take over this toilet and run this toilet. But the basic thing is no NGO is ready, means within the community, no one's ready to form the NGO and run this community toilet. Okay. So then once this community toilet is also developed, after that also there are so many issues or there is no light, someone will steal the taps, they will break the door, all these antisocial elements are also there. How to control these antisocial elements? Then even if we give it to the NGO, then some antisocial element will grab this toilet and misuse this toilet for a monetary gain, or just convert the toilet into some other thing only. So to reach this people thing is very difficult. So it is a community, they themselves now upgrade themselves to protect our rights. If they know they know their right that they must have the toilet, but they should know their responsibility to protect that toilet too.
Yes.
So these are the we are having time constraint, but within this span, I think I have told everything. It is a responsibility of the community and the administration and the NGO, all three, and then everyone, if they do their responsibility properly, I think there won't be any issues.
Yes. Thank you for this, ma'am. As you've brought up the issue.
Yes, thank you, ma'am. There is another question, and to that question, I have one example to share before we go ahead about. We all are talking about the evaluation and monitoring when the toilet is in place. I would like to share one interesting thing that our community has done when the toilet was not in place. The toilet was demolished and it was not constructed for next 2 years. So recently, on the eve of World Toilet Day, our community came up with the idea and did 12 condolence meetings for 12 continuous days. That toilet is dead and we need to pay attention to make it alive. We have so many memories with the toilet. So at the end, we all in the community used to meet every evening and light the candles, and people used to share their memories with the toilet. So that was so impactful that all the toilets wherein we had condolence meetings, their reconstruction had begun. So I think it is not just in terms of metrics, what input we have given and what output that has come out, but also these interesting ideas that community comes up, and it has gotten huge impact. See, 12 condolence meeting and 12 construction begins. It is really a different kind of evaluation of the situation and then monitoring ahead to make it happen. So I think we have come to an end of this session almost. I would like to thank each one of you, Sangeeta ma'am, Vijay Shri, Anand, Sujata, Anjum, and for joining us, for sharing your insights. It was really wonderful. And I want to apologize. Please accept my sincere apology for losing the internet connection, losing the electricity in between. I know it's difficult times. We all are working from home and trying to get adjusted, but nothing can stop Coro and Right to P from working. We have altered our ways of working and we will continue doing it. So thank you very much, and to all the participants, you will get the recordings of this webinar if you request for the same. You will receive a feedback form in next 10 minutes. I request all of you to fill it up and send it back to us. It will be really helpful for us to go ahead and to document the whole process. Thank you so much, speakers, and thank you so much to all the participants. 50 plus participants have joined us. 76 participants have registered across, and some of them have written to us that they are outside India, so we have to send them the recordings. They are unable to join us at this time. So it is an overwhelming response. And yes, I declare that Coro has successfully hosted first webinar in the history, in the journey of Coro. So thank you so much for being with us, and looking forward for strengthening this communications dialogue ahead. We will continue to confront, and we will continue to collaborate. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks.
बैगनवाड़ी एरिया, डंपिंग ग्राउंड एरिया में मैं रहती हूँ। मेरी बस्ती में जो 10,000 घर है, जहाँ पर सिर्फ 2 ही टॉयलेट है, तो वो भी बहुत दूरी पे था। तो मुझे ऐसा लगा कि जब मैं कोरो से 6 साल से जुड़कर काम कर रही हूँ, तो मीटिंग लेते समय सबसे बड़ा मुद्दा यही आता था कि बस्ती में टॉयलेट ही नहीं है, और वो भी है भी तो बहुत दूरी पर है, जिसके कारण बहुत सारी दिक्कतें होती थी। छेड़छाड़, नशा, रास्ते में जाना, फिर गुंडागर्दी वगैरह, ये सारी चीजें। तो ऐसा लगा कि अगर बस्ती में ही अगर एक टॉयलेट होता है तो शायद ये दिक्कतें कम हो सकती है। तो उसके बाद लोगों से बात करके, इकट्ठा करके लोगों को, उनके साथ मीटिंग लेकर लेटर लिखना, फिर वार्ड ऑफिस में देना, नगर सेवक को देना, जगह ढूंढना, ये सारी चीजें करके बस्ती में टॉयलेट तो बन गया। तो मतलब दिक्कतें खत्म हो गई, यही तक ये नहीं था। उसके बाद असल काम शुरू होता है, जिसकी वजह से ऐसा था कि टॉयलेट की देखभाल कौन करेगा, टॉयलेट कैसा होगा, उसको मॉनिटरिंग कौन करेगा, उसमें सेफ लगे लड़कियों को, महिलाओं को, ये कैसे होगा। फिर ये सारी चीजों को, मुद्दे को लेकर लोगों से बात करना, और जब लोग इकट्ठा आकर काम करते हैं तो ये लोगों को दिखता भी है और लोग सुनते भी हैं। फिर वो बीएमसी हो या फिर नगर सेवक हो या फिर बस्ती के कम्युनिटी लीडर्स वगैरह जो भी हो, तो ये लोगों को लगता है कि ये इस मुद्दे को लेकर काम करना चाहिए, और लोग करते भी हैं।
I just want to highlight one thing, as Anand was mentioning about toilets becoming a hub for transmission of COVID-19. We at Coro, we have done COVID-19 rapid assessment for toilets very recently, and we actually the findings, like say for example, one toilet has been used by 1400 households. It's not just case of Dharavi, as we all know about it. It is also a case of slums like M East Ward, M West Ward, where our intervention is focused. So it is explicitly clear that these spaces, toilet spaces, can be a hub for transmission. So we have actually, we had a rapid assessment with the toilet operators, with the people who use, with the administration, and we have come out with the rapid assessment report. It has been submitted to the administration, and the first and foremost thing that administration has done as an impact of it, they have started sanitizing the toilets every day, and that is very important initiative, and that was needed to be done. The second issue that we are yet to resolve is about making toilets free for the community, but in the times of COVID, but yet there are operators and maintenance who are associated with us. They are being saying that, yes, we know this is our community, our toilets. We know that people have lost their livelihoods, so we should just wait and watch, and how do we take this ahead. So we are trying. Yes, users are unable to pay. They have lost their livelihoods during COVID-19, but operators are thinking that they will do their role in serving the community. Here the role comes is that of the administration, how the administration is going to respond to the needs of the operators. And we are at this stage of addressing, having a dialogue with the administration, and how can we have a smooth operation and maintenance of toilets even during the times of pandemic, as it is the most essential services for the people in the communities, those who cannot have a lockdown in house. They have to go out for toilet and water facilities outside their house, as they have no option. So we are at the stage of actually resolving these issues.